Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reedsy Live, Reedsy's ongoing series of webinars where we bring on professionals from the world of publishing to show you how to write, publish, and market better books. My name is Martin. I'm part of the team here at Reedsy based in London, and we're very pleased to welcome you all here to this live stream where we're going to be talking about the wonderful topic of crowdfunding in publishing. I'm really glad to see so many people have already joined us live. If it's not too presumptuous, please give us a like. It will really help us go a long way with this. Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush too much. We have a lot to cover in this one. It's a big old topic. So please let me bring on my guest, who is a writer, an editor whose work has appeared on Slate, MTV News, and Vice, amongst other outlets. She is the head of publishing for Kickstarter. Please welcome Oriana Leckert. Oriana, how are you?
Hello, so happy to be here, Martin. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I believe you are in New York currently?
I am currently in New York where it is quite chilly, but getting a little bit warmer.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I have some colleagues who are in New York, and they were talking about the promise of a big storm or a big snowstorm a few weeks ago. They just it didn't
Well,
come.
it came, but then it melted very quickly.
Oh, that's the absolute worst. Yeah, we have some of that where we get excited here in London, where there's like speckles of snow, and yeah, very little of it sticks these days. Well, I'm really glad you can join us. I believe you've been at Kickstarter for quite a few years now.
Yeah, 5 years.
That's these days. That's pretty much man and boy, a career in a career in one place. Nobody really stays anywhere for long. So, is it a physical office or is it all remote?
It was a physical office when I started, but since COVID, the company's gone fully remote.
Oh, that's good. Well, it depends. Like if you've got a good
Yeah.
setup, then it's quite nice. All right. Well, folks are going to be watching here. I'm going to be monitoring the comments. Everyone, there's going to be a Q&A at the end. If you want to blast over any questions, I'll keep an eye on it. But as soon as Oriana's done with her presentation, we'll have a Q&A. So sit tight. Oriana, if you need anything, I'll be here in the wings. But yeah, just let me know.
Thank you. All right. Well, so hello. Yep, I'm Oriana Leckert. I'm the head of publishing at Kickstarter. Do you want to share the slides? Yes, beautiful. So here I am. This is me. You can find all of our wonderful publishing projects, kickstarter.com/publishing. You can find me on most social platforms at Oriana, BKLYN for Brooklyn. This will be, I'll talk for probably 15-ish minutes, depending how long-winded I am. I'll give you a quick look at my career, what sets Kickstarter apart in the sort of crowdfunding landscape, some stats about how publishing has done on Kickstarter, why you might consider this kind of crowdfunding campaign. I'll do a handful of case studies. A bonus slide about some very cool, innovative reward ideas, and then I will open it up for all of your questions. As Martin says, I'm not going to watch the chat while I'm talking because I get very distracted. But please, I'm happy for all of your questions that I'm sure we'll get to at the end. So this is a little bit of my strange publishing journey. I started my career way back at Random House before they had even absorbed Penguin. I was a news editor for Alice Obscura and MTV News. I was a matchmaker for ghostwriters at Gotham Ghostwriters. I worked for literary agencies, book packagers, and then this on the right is my book that I published about 5 years ago. It's grew out of a long-running reporting project on underground and DIY art spaces all across Brooklyn and the rest of New York City. So I've been on all sides of the publishing landscape. I used Reedsy a whole lot. I was a freelance editor for a long time before I came to Kickstarter, so definitely a fan of the services here. So, as I said, I like to start with sort of what makes Kickstarter unique. Kickstarter's our mission is to bring creative projects to life. That is everything that we do comes back to that goal. We believe so strongly in that mission that in I think 2015, Kickstarter reincorporated as a public benefit corporation. This isn't something that I knew about before I worked here, but it's a business charter, fairly strict, that requires us to consider our impact on all the world with all of our choices. We can't be coerced by shareholders, stockholders, investors to chase profits if that comes at the expense of our mission, which is again to bring creative projects to life. So we're essentially a mission-driven for-profit organization. We also, it's a very progressively run organization. We have strong values for diversity. We do diversity surveys. We have pledged to keep the uh, I forget the terminology, but the highest and the lowest salaries have to stay within a certain range of each other. We donate 5% of our after tax earnings every year to arts and culture organizations and organizations fighting inequality. So it's a good company. I feel pretty honored to be a part of it. On the more technical side, Kickstarter's funding model is all or nothing. That means that if you set out to raise $10,000 and you only raise $4,000, you don't get any of the dollars. People think that that seems scary, but it was actually designed with creative people in mind. The idea is that throughout your campaign, you're going to make a lot of promises about the thing you're going to create, the rewards associated with it, your timeline, your shipping, your budget. And so if you get to the end and you've only got part of the money that you need, you're actually in a very bad spot. You're going to either have to self-fund to come up with the rest of it, maybe produce an inferior product, maybe not fulfill it at all of which are really bad outcomes. So our goal is to make sure that nobody's trying to bring their work to life with an incomplete budget. Another thing that I think is really important about Kickstarter is that we're in the business of giving you your audience. We've been doing this long before everybody sort of realized that all the work they've been doing, building up audiences on various social platforms, can disappear in the blink of an eye when an algorithm is tweaked or changes are made internally. So when you run a Kickstarter campaign, during the campaign, we give you a ton of demographic information to help you figure out whether your outreach and promotion is working well. We share where people are from, what kind of device they're using to book, where they've seen, ads for your campaign, things like that. And then after a project is over, we give you immediately everybody's first name, last name, and email address. So these are folks that we expect you are going to be absorbing into the greater community around your work. And that's an audience that we want you to be able to keep having access to long after the campaign is over. Finally, Kickstarter's fee is 5%. This is an industry setting fee that we did when we launched and have never raised. We take 5% of completed projects. So if you run a campaign that doesn't reach its funding goal, you don't owe anybody any money. On top of this, our payment processor, Stripe, takes like a 3 to 4% variable that's based on where all the bank accounts are around the world. So for a Kickstarter campaign, if you budget 10% for fees, you'll be more than covered and you'll be paying a lot less than many of the other places where you might go to sell your writing. Do you want to go to that? Okay, thanks, Martin. So some stats about Kickstarter Reads, which encompasses here publishing, comics, and journalism. So kind of anything in the world of words. We've had, since Kickstarter launched in 2009, 98,000 projects have launched, $610 million have been pledged by more than 4 million individual backers. 2023 was our fourth best year ever in a row in publishing and comics. That's also true for games. The current success rate for these categories is 63%, which is pretty good. It's higher than the site average. But another metric, my favorite metric actually that we love to look at, is projects with at least 25 backers. We think this is an important indicator because 25 backers is a little bigger than your mom, your best friend, the folks who are sort of obligated to donate to any kind of project you put in front of them. So 25 backers means you're reaching outside that inner circle, you're taking the project seriously, you're marketing it well. So as it says, the success rate in my categories for projects with at least 25 backers is 85%. So tremendously high. Well, I think that's double actually the site average. So let's talk about some of the benefits of literary crowdfunding, or why would you do something like this? Kickstarter is a platform that's designed to help you share the story of your creative work. Of course, that means you're going to detail the plot of the book that you're writing, but it also lets you talk about who you are, what brought you to this work, what inspires you, your collaborators, your budgets, your timeline, all the sort of the whole story of what it is you're doing, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and why. Kickstarter is a platform that helps you connect directly with your audience. This is something that is really not available in most other parts of the publishing landscape. You can talk to your readers and your fans before the campaign to get them excited about it. You can work with them during the campaign. You can have surveys that say, should we go with the blue cover or the red cover? If we get, $1,000 over our goal, what kind of extra rewards would you like to see? And you can talk to them, as I said, afterward. This is a way to keep you, giving you that direct line between, readers and writers, between authors and their fans. A Kickstarter campaign can help you build awareness of your work. Through the course of the campaign, you're going to be shouting from the rooftops to both the audience that you have and the audience that you want. So you can turn a release of a new book or a reissue of a previous book or something like that. You can really make it into a moment, build up, your brand awareness and market it in all the ways that you can. Um, Kickstarter allows you to sell through pre-orders or sell through your backlist. For legal reasons, you can't actually call it pre-orders, but a lot of authors run their campaigns in that way. The idea being that, the book is written, it's edited, it's proofread, typeset, ready to send to the printer. So you're gathering funds to pay those production costs. And then through the rewards, if you have other books, you can sell them as individuals, bundles, helps you get rid of that overstock that you might have sitting in your garage. Kickstarter is a great way to test out an ambitious idea because, as I said, if you run a campaign and it doesn't fund, all you've lost is your time. So if you think there's an audience for moving into a new genre, doing a big compilation, an anthology with other authors, something else that's bigger, weirder, more ambitious than you might be able to stomach doing without having the benefit of assessing your audience and getting your money up front, Kickstarter is a terrific place to try to make that happen. And then finally, Kickstarter helps you delight your readers with something unique. Your project will be to fund one main item, but all of the rewards can take you in so many different directions. As I said, I've got a slide at the end that talks about some really unique and cool reward ideas, but it doesn't have to be, just swag. There's all kinds of things that you can do to bring your audience and your readers into the creative world of your work and make them really excited to support you on this journey. So now I'll go into some case studies. This is obviously the place to start. I imagine a large number of you may have first heard about Kickstarter when Brandon Sanderson ran his campaign last year. This is the highest funded Kickstarter campaign ever, not just publishing campaign. It is actually more than double the amount of the previous highest funded project, which was for watches. There has never before been a publishing project, I think even in the top 20. So to careen up into that top spot was very exciting. If you are not familiar with the campaign, this was called A Year of Sanderson. Over the course of the early pandemic days, Brandon wrote 4 new never before seen novels. And so he created this whole campaign for all of 2023. His backers would get a package from him every single month. 4 of those would be these brand new books, and the others were themed swag boxes that were themed around the various worlds that he writes, really high-end, beautiful items. This was a major, major project with massive production infrastructure. Brandon was not putting all these things in boxes for his almost 200,000 backers in his own house. He's got a staff of close to 80 people and a warehouse out in Salt Lake City. He also came to the project with incredible community engagement. He's a very well-known author, and he's known for his close interaction with his fans. He's got 500,000 YouTube subscribers, and he does videos all the time. So while this is an incredible, aspirational, beautiful campaign that we were very pleased to support and have on our platform, I don't want to set the expectation that this is the kind of thing that every author might be able to do. But it is one of our shining stars, so it seems like a good place to start. Brandon, having done that, kicked off a huge bump in special editions. We're seeing these in all sorts of genres, but in books overall. These are people who are really elevating these sort of books as art objects. We're seeing all kinds of nerdy print production stuff. We've got spot gloss and foil and sprayed edges and ribbon bookmarks and vellum art inserts. It's really, really exciting. And also the kind of project that is perfect to fund on Kickstarter, because getting the money up front, understanding what size print run you want to make, is really handy when you're spending a lot of money on, flashy production. Another nice campaign recently, Matt Dinneman ran a project for Dungeon Crawler Carl. He's a very popular lit RPG writer. There's a huge games community on Kickstarter, so lit RPG is a really nice crossover from publishing that captures a lot of the same audience. These books have been released in various bits and bobs, in ebooks and audiobooks and small collections. So this was the first time the whole thing was collected in print. Matt did additional swag and book enhancements via his stretch goals. So he said, if we raise this much, you're going to get a hardcover book. If we raise this much more, we're adding a signature. This much after that, a ribbon bookmark. This, that, the other thing, like many, many things, as the campaign climbed higher and higher. He also had very cool, quirky rewards. Among my favorites, for $666, he promised to kill you off in his next book. And for $777, he vowed to let you live. So this was a really fun campaign. He took it with a lot of joy, and it went very, very well. It's a good example of the genre fiction we see on the site, of which there is a lot: sci-fi, fantasy, mysteries, romance, queer books. We also see literary fiction, really kind of any kind of project you can think of, you can fund on Kickstarter. So these are just some of the nice projects that we've had recently that I thought would be good books to share. There's also plenty of nonfiction. This was one that I really liked. Skye Warren wrote The Best-Selling Author Next Door. She's a subject matter expert with a deep audience in sort of like how to for writers. She is also herself a best-selling novelist, catering to a really engaged readership, the kinds of people that are likely to be on Kickstarter already looking at other books. This is a cool campaign in that she funded multiple formats at once: paperback, hardcover, ebook, audiobook, also these workbooks. And there was a real sort of choose your own adventure vibe to the campaign. You could pick whichever method you wanted to receive your book in ultimately. And yes, she did beautifully. $142,000 raised from just shy of 1,500 backers. There's a lot of other kinds of nonfiction that we see all the time. There's a lot of cookbooks, sort of business guru kinds of projects, memoirs, self-help in kind of all of its formats. Really, anybody who's writing in nonfiction and has a good line to their audience can find really good success here. Another area I love to see, we've got a very strong community in children's books. This is a beautiful one, The Wonderful World of Zuri Rose. This was by a woman, marginalized community, and she wrote this whole story inspired by her life. She was a floral arranger for high-end weddings. So there's, in addition to being a lovely story, she's got all of these STEM-focused elements about botany and flowers sort of themed throughout the book. And she also had unique rewards. You could get custom flower arrangements, you could get little details. I think she had PDFs of like, tell her your favorite flower, and she would tell you some fun facts about them. So really bringing in that sort of that vibe to the project. And we see children's books of all sorts, but really particularly the sort of our voices, own voices stuff. We see a lot from like language, culture, and food of, non-American societies. A lot of projects for queer kids, for disabled kids. The kinds of books that have been largely ignored by the traditional publishing industry tend to be the ones that can find a really good home at Kickstarter in children's books and beyond. So here's my bonus slide on rewards. I will say again, swag is lovely. People really like custom merch, but you don't have to. Doing a Kickstarter doesn't mean that you need to turn yourself into a merch production facility. You can do all sorts of things that are not going to cost you money to package and ship. custom playlists, editorial reviews, writing backers into the story like Matt Dinneman did. Whatever your skill set is, you can do consultations, whether that's storytelling, social media, business stuff, whatever, humor writing. We see lots of people commissioning original art, often from their friends, people in their community that want to donate, to help them reach their goal. People do book clubs, whether of their book or other books like it, lunch parties. You can do virtual or IRL, cooking classes for sure. You can get other sorts of homemade goods or handmade goods. Again, often either themed to your project and or made by small businesses or folks sort of in your community. We see this a lot with the romance novels. That's where the homemade bath bomb came from. Also like candles that have a specific scent that factors into, the story itself, that sort of thing. We're seeing a lot of IP crossover with stuff like tarot cards, tabletop board games, illustrated maps, things like that. And of course, with a lot of the children's books, you're seeing handmade toys. So those are just a few ideas. I think that rewards are so central to the Kickstarter proposition, and that's the place where you can really come up with the most interesting and creative things that will be fun for you to make and also really, really exciting for your readers to have. Finally, here are some helpful links. As I said, the publishing category on the site. I would say my number one advice, if you are even considering running a Kickstarter someday, go to that link right now. Find 5 campaigns that you like and back them, even for a buck or two. Find and follow those creators out in the world. Start getting a sense of how people are talking about their campaigns, how people are running their project, the cadence of their updates, the types of rewards they're offering. Figure out what everybody's doing, unabashedly steal all of the best ideas and incorporate them into your own project. I have a curated publishing creator tips page that's got a number of videos just like this one of my face in various screens. I've also got a lot of articles that I've commissioned around how to write a press release for your campaign, how to build your audience, how to promote your project. I just had one from a youth comics librarian out in California. She wrote an article about how to get your Kickstarter funded book into a library and why you would want to. So there's lots of tips and tricks on that page that will be really helpful. Of course, the Kickstarter Creator Handbook, that'll take you through every single step of your crowdfunding journey. And then finally, we have an experts page. It is by no means exhaustive, and you should certainly do your own research, but it's got a lot of organizations and companies that, do print production, vinyl pressing, make playing cards, like all of the different elements of things that you might include in your campaign, and some tips for folks who might be able to help create those things for you. So that's the end of my talk. I'm going to drink some water and then open up the surely endless scroll of comments and questions, and I'm looking forward to answering all of them as best I can.
Oh, great. Well, there have already been a few questions rolling in, but I suppose for the folks who don't know exactly what the sort of shape and timeline of a Kickstarter campaign is like, we just start with, well, what do people normally crowdfund for? What are they looking to pay for normally when they come to
Yeah,
Kickstarter?
totally. So, I mean, I do the publishing category, so it's a lot of books, a lot of people funding one book, a series of books, an anniversary edition, an omnibus, various iterations, paperback, print book, an ebook, an audiobook, that sort of thing. Um, the easiest way to do it is once you've got the book pretty close to done, and you just want to get the money to send it off to the printer, so you're funding your print production costs. We also see lots of people funding earlier stages, their editorial costs, their design costs, those sorts of things. And so long as the Kickstarter, basically it's just a forum for you to make a compact with your readers and your supporters. So if you say, the book is ready to go. Once I get these funds, I'll send it to the printer. It's going to be in your hands in 3 months or 6 months. Great. If you say to them, I'm still in the writing stages, it's going to take me several more months to finish the writing, then here are all the stages of editorial and pre-production and all of that. You're going to have books in your hands in 2 years. If people are like, hey, that's fine, excited to support you on the way, then that's great. So it can really, a Kickstarter campaign must create something, so there has to be one sort of like central focus, but it can be at any point in your journey, whatever it is that you can get your readers to support.
I suppose for a lot of folks, like the number one baseline reward is the actual book itself, right? You're paying for
Yeah, that's
this. As soon as we hit this, it'll allow me to complete the book, edit it, publish it, and you'll receive that first one. And then, could you sort of explain to me, like, where the idea of tiered rewards?
yeah. So when you go to a Kickstarter campaign, that's exactly right. You've got, your project video, your project story, and on the side, you've got all of your rewards. So those can be cost as little as $1, as much as $10,000. That's the highest reward tier you can offer on Kickstarter, and you can offer anything you want in that anything that you think your readers and your audience will be interested in. I typically recommend starting with your main book tier and then building out above and below that. Given the increasingly sky rising shipping costs, it's often wise to not send anything physical below the book tier. So you can do your digital rewards there, whether that's, as I said, things like the custom playlist. You can do a pretty PDF of 10 other books that I recommend that are along the same lines as mine. You can do, I've seen people do sort of like digital recordings of notes from the field or outtakes from the project. You could write a separate story, things like that. I would do all of that. I wouldn't write a story for less than the book tier unless it's very short and very easy. And then when you're building above, the sky's the limit. You can make anything you want. You can conceive anything you want. You can do partner rewards. You can do, experience rewards. Really, there's that's I think where the real excitement of the conceiving the campaign can come in.
We've got a question here from uh, Ofaki Wiyoso. What needs to be in place before utilizing Kickstarter? Website, Facebook groups? Is there a sequential list available? I suppose there probably is like a myth that I need to crowdfund my book. I'm going to put it on Kickstarter, and you guys are going to somehow magically funnel hundreds of interested backers to come to me. But I suppose it isn't that simple. Otherwise, I'd be kickstarting.
We'd all be very rich.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, so it is true. Putting your campaign up on Kickstarter does not, alas, mean that you will be showered by magical internet money. That isn't quite how things go. You do need to bring some amount of an audience with you, or you're not likely to be able to reach your goal. The Kickstarter algorithm works on attention. So if you can bring people, if you can sort of like galvanize that attention at the beginning, our system will see, oh, a lot of people are looking at this project. We should keep showing it to more and more people. But a rough guide, we track, you can see this in your creator dashboard, what percentage of your backings are coming through your efforts and which are coming from the Kickstarter ecosystem. For a publishing campaign, you can say about 15 to 30% are likely to come through Kickstarter. So that's not insignificant. That's a good amount of people and money that will come just by nature of being on the platform, but it can't be the whole story. You definitely do need to have your own audience and ways to reach them. Another way that I often say this, and sorry, this is kind of corny, everybody thinks about the funding side of crowdfunding, but you also really need to be thinking about the crowd because that's what you're doing with this kind of fundraising. You're figuring out who is in your crowd, where are they, how do you find them, what do they want, how can you offer things that are going to get them to come in and join this journey that you're taking. So to the original question, do you have to have a Facebook account? No, but you do have to have ways in place where you can reach the people who are likeliest to be interested in your work. In fact, these days, social media is actually on the decline, and we're seeing more newsletters and smaller groups kind of take over. But you probably do want to have a more robust social strategy. Using whichever platforms you tend to already be on. There are probably no bad tactics when it comes to promotion. So, whatever avenues are available to you, you want to make good use of them.
Because I know like a lot of people who do start tend to launch their campaign sort of with an existing list of backers. Sometimes maybe what it's like family. I have a friend who ran, I think, a Kickstarter campaign for a kids book recently. And I think you launch it, and then I think it's quite daunting to see that 0% backed number. Is there sort of a advised amount that you should kind of have already sort of banked away before you launch a campaign?
I wouldn't quite think about it like that, but I would say, yeah, you want to have a really strong first day. That's an excellent predictor of crowdfunding success, not to mention being very good for messaging and especially for morale. One of the ways that Kickstarter helps you do that is you can put up a pre-launch page once your campaign has been approved for launch, and you can have that up for as long as you want. It's a simple cover page that sits at the same URL where your project will eventually live. It's got your title, subtitle, project image, and a button that says notify me on launch. The idea being if you get a bunch of people following you, they'll all get a system email from Kickstarter once you go live. And the conversion rate from pre launch followers to project backers is quite high. So that's a good way to help make sure that you're going to have that strong first day, get that attention, start the ball rolling really positively.
Carol's asking, do we need to have a following before starting a Kickstarter campaign, or can we start without any followers? It's sort of, I guess,
Well,
a run-on from
I,
that.
yeah, I mean, it's a similar question. I think that it is a good idea to have some ways of accessing the audience that you have or the audience that you want. I would say, it also depends on the size of the project you're trying to fund. If you're an emerging author who's only got a few dozen people on your mailing list, now is probably not the time to try to roll out a deluxe leather-bound 3-volume omnibus for tens of thousands of dollars. So you want to make sure that your ambition matches your reach.
So, from the successful campaigns that you've seen, from I guess maybe first-time authors, ones maybe with a limited platform, uh, have any particular places been? Have you seen whether any kind of place has been fruitful for it? Whether it's like forums or I guess reader communities, or like do people advertise on Facebook or something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I said, there are kind of no bad tactics. There are a lot of Facebook groups for authors, authors broadly, and authors using Kickstarter specifically. I'm sure that there are similar communities on Discord and on Instagram and on YouTube, and any place where you are otherwise gathering with other readers and writers. You're likely to find people talking about their crowdfunding projects.
Uh, Oh, I think JM just wants a bit of clarification. What do donators get out of it, or the backers? If they get X, they get X plus Y, like the stock market, or X if the project fails.
No, it's nothing like that. They get rewards. So you can, uh, when you go to a Kickstarter campaign, you choose which reward you want to get, and then if the project is successfully funded, that's the thing that the creator will send to you.
Okay, I've got another little question here. Roland, just wait. Let's see. Does Kickstarter have adverts? Is there any way, I guess, to beef up your presence on the platform?
Um, Not as such. You if you can't like pay Kickstarter to get more exposure. Kickstarter is actually a fairly manual promotion process. We have a whole curatorial team. They are the ones who are deciding, which projects to put in newsletters and to share on our socials and that sort of thing. There is also a lot of algorithmic recommendation. There's macros and carousels across the site. Every system email has a row of recommendations across the bottom. And so, as I was saying, that algorithm functions purely by attention. So, if your project is getting a lot of attention, it's likelier to get elevated into, higher in search results, into these macros, that sort of thing.
Anne Miller has a question. How does one determine how much to ask for? So I guess this is about setting that
Yeah, your
initial
funding
goal, because
goal.
you have all your stretch goals and stuff. But what is a sort of prudent strategy for setting that initial goal?
Yeah, well, there's probably not a proven strategy, and it's certainly this is going to vary widely based on who you are, your platform and your reach, the kind of project you're funding. But the first answer is you need to make a very good budget. You need to get quotes from printers and understand, how big is the book, how heavy is the book, how many pages, what is your production cost, what are your shipping costs, what rewards are you making, how much are your costs going to be there, that sort of thing. There's in fact that creator tips site that I mentioned. I have an article on there, how to create an expert Kickstarter budget, written by Russell Nolte, who has run I think 62 campaigns for his books and comics. It's got a worksheet in there so that you can start plugging in some numbers and getting a sense of your total. So that's the first step. Figure out how much money do you need to actually do this project the way that you want to. When determining your funding goal, as I think I said a moment ago, the next thing to determine is, are you capable, given your audience, your platform, your network, and your means of reaching them, to get to that amount of money, making sure there's a fit between your ambition, what you want to do, and how much it's going to cost, and your reach, where your people are, and how you're going to bring them into the campaign. That's a question that only you can answer, because you are the one who knows. You're going to need to do a real honest assessment of who you have in your network, what your methods are going to be to reach beyond that, and see what you think is going to be likely for you. In an all or nothing platform, you don't want to run your campaign too aspirationally. You do want to try to find the number that's going to give you the minimum amount that you need to make this thing come true, that is also achievable based on all of the things that you can do.
Okay, Jasmine's asking for a bit of insight. Is there an ideal time or month of the year in which to launch a campaign?
Yeah, so the answer is it depends. The answer is going to be it depends for probably all of these questions. I will tell you this. I'll tell you the basic ways that things run on Kickstarter. January is pretty slow. People are sort of recovering from all the chaos of the holidays. February also kind of slow. Things to start to tip up in March. March, April, May, extremely busy. They sort of start tipping downward again in June. We all sort of forever run on an academic calendar. So June, July, August tend to slow way down. September and October are really, really busy again. And the first half of November, once you hit that sort of midpoint in November, it drops way off. It is very difficult to run a Kickstarter campaign during the holidays. It's just really hard to break through all the noise, and everybody who's trying to buy things in December wants to have something in hand that they can put under the tree next to the menorah, etc. And since Kickstarter has a much longer fulfillment timeline than that, it's not an ideal thing to be getting in December. All that said, there are pros and cons to being on the platform when it's busy as well as when it's slow. When it's busy, there's a lot more potential backers just sort of running around and casually browsing, but there's a lot more projects that are competing for those eyes. So if you run it during a slower time, you can kind of have a bigger fish in a small pond impact, because there are just fewer other creators competing for all the people who might be considering backing a project right now.
Okay, I've got a question here from Ed, who I think sat on his caps lock and then let it go a little bit afterwards, asking which genres do best on Kickstarter. So you mentioned uh, a few ones like fantasy and some literary, but it also seems like a lot of stuff with maybe a strong but niche audience seems to do well there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are strong built-in communities for genre fiction, but yeah, I started when I came to Kickstarter, I was actually tasked with growing our journalism category, and the way I would get this question in those areas are, people would ask me like, what US states have the highest number of, journalism backers for Kickstarter? And the answer was New York, Illinois, and California. But that was because the three largest ever journalism campaigns had been for local media outlets in Brooklyn, Chicago, and LA. So there's a bit of a, this sort of, it feeds itself. If you are anybody who's going to be bringing in an audience, that is going to increase the number of backers who are on Kickstarter right now looking for mystery novels or memoirs or self-help books, or that sort of thing. It can be a really good place for a niche audience. We try to cultivate that. There's a lot of backers who are really into like sort of witchy and new agey type things. So every November or October, we run a prompt called Witch Starter, and we encourage people to launch all of their spooky projects at the same time. I think this is not 100% confirmed yet, but I think we're going to do our first romance prompt in July, encouraging people to do all their sexy, sweaty books in the summer. So there's lots of different kinds of audiences that you can tap into, that are already extant on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of folks are sort of asking about where you get your audience, and I think if you're looking to self-publish, as a lot of folks watching I think are interested in, it's pretty much the same thing. We had someone on here previously talking about they'd written a memoir about their time their adventure on a tall ship going across the Pacific or something. And this is the sort of book that will appeal to folks who love tall ships, people who are fans of Patrick O'Brien of the Master and Commander series. And so it's a matter of like going to those communities. He went and found the Tall Ships of America organization and spoke at their gala. You go to groups who are big fans of Patrick O'Brien, the people who run, podcasts about this sort of thing, folks who, starve for content or interested in this sort of thing, and you pitch them this idea. I've got this great thing. If you know who these people are, right, then ideally know where they live, and it's just a matter of going there. And then I suppose Kickstarter is the platform where you can send them instead of
Yeah,
going
that's
like,
exactly right.
give me your email, and maybe in about 5 months' time when it's all done, I'll send you an email and you can buy it. This feels like it brings people in, like all the crowdfunding platforms. You're making everyone, part of the adventure and the experience, and they get updates about where they are with the production and the writing of the book, and sort of gets everyone invested. I suppose it also turns those initial backers and investors into your street team,
Super
your
fans.
evangelists.
Yep. Yeah, you're doing my job for me. I can just turn my computer off and you can just do the rest.
It turns out I just love the sound of my own voice. As folks in the audience will be able to attest if they turn up. Um, and some procedural ones here. Carolyn Bowman, do donators just put their donation on a credit card, or their backing? It's just through
Yeah, yeah,
any
yeah.
major card.
Yeah, anybody in the world can back a Kickstarter campaign from anywhere if you have a credit card or a bank account. You can only launch a Kickstarter campaign if you have a bank account in a Stripe approved country. And there are some that are not. I think
India.
Cuba, I think Iran, I think India, those sorts of things. But yeah, the donations, if you are coming in as a backer, you just need to have a credit card.
Melanie asks, how does the author get the donor funds? Through PayPal, direct bank deposit? Is it basically as soon as you hit your goal, does the money drop, or is it a certain date?
Yeah, so the way the money actually works on Kickstarter is that during the course of the campaign, no money changes hands. If I pledge $25 to your campaign, Stripe is going to peek in. They're going to confirm that I am who I say I am, that I have access to the bank account I've put in, and it's got at least $25 in it. Then at the end of the campaign, once it has successfully reached its goal, Stripe's got a 2-week grace period where they now go and they start pulling all the money from all the places. Then they're going to take out their fee, they're going to send Kickstarter our fee, and they're going to deposit the rest in a lump sum directly to the bank that you have put into your creator account, which you have to have done before you can launch.
Annie and quite a few other people are asking about the tax implications. Is this considered an income? How does the tax work on this?
I am like explicitly not allowed to give tax or accounting advice, especially to an international audience.
Yeah.
I will say I should put this in my helpful links. Kickstarter has our own project updates, which is our clever word for our blog. The last article we published has a little bit of tax advice, although like at the top in all caps, it says you need to talk to an accountant about this to figure out the specifics of your country, your state, your income, all of those sorts of things.
Uh, on other one, Leonardo asks, what are the liability implications with regards to the contribution? I suppose if now we're starting to grill you. If the backing gets fully funded, the author or the campaign starter gets the funds. Is there any recourse for a backer to go like they never deliver me
Yeah,
the reward?
it doesn't happen very often, but, the answer is no. That's sort of when you make a pledge, you have to click some boxes that say, "I understand that Kickstarter is not a store, that rewards are not guaranteed. I am deciding that I'm gonna trust this person, that they're gonna do the things that they say they're going to do." The real thing for a creator that's on the line is your reputation. If you don't do the thing, now you've got all of these people who believed in you with their dollars, who are going to be really disappointed if you can't create the thing that you promised. So, it really is about creating a sort of like a level of trust and a compact between the person offering the thing and the person agreeing to support that thing with their money.
Carolyn asks, what's the typical length of a campaign, or maybe like
Yeah,
what tends to be the sweet spot?
Totally. You can run it anywhere from 1 to 60 days. We recommend about 30 days, kind of about 4 weeks. Most campaigns, the majority of your action is going to happen in the first week and the last week. There's almost always a sort of plateau period in the middle. But we think you do need that amount of time to sort of like make sure there's enough space for all of your activations to come to fruition. In the early days of Kickstarter, back in 2009, you'd post your campaign on your Facebook page, everyone you know would see it, you'd be pretty much done. It's not really so easy. These days, you have to be pushing in a lot of directions and a lot of different places. Many people will not see any of your posts, even if you pay to boost them. You'll also likely be looking to source press. Maybe you'll be doing interviews on somebody else's blog or podcast or YouTube channel. So you want to make sure there's enough time to get all of that stuff to like come to fruition. And we think about 4 weeks. Also, the sort of a well-run Kickstarter, it's kind of functioning like a marketing campaign, and that like tangible urgency is going to help propel backers, propel creators to and often beyond their funding goal. But in order to do that, you really need this sort of like strong, concentrated burst of attention, and maintaining that level of enthusiasm for much longer than a month is going to be really exhausting, and it's going to kind of negate its impact.
Yeah. Like I say about Facebook, there was a point in time where everybody seemed to be on Facebook, maybe about 10 years ago, and yeah, like everybody would check it every day, and there would be people sending out crowdfunding campaigns, and yeah, everybody you know would see it. And
Yep.
now, if I had to ask everyone I went to school with and all my aunts and stuff, yeah, I wouldn't know where to go. Facebook's probably good if you've got a lot of aunts and grandparents.
It depends where your people are. Exactly.
Yeah. Let me see if I can dig up any more. Um, let's see. Oh, Leonardo just wants clarification. Do backers receive their money again if campaign amount is not reached? So is the money taken out when you back something? Is the money taken out of your account then, or are you sort of pledging to sort of pay once it's complete?
It's a pledge, yeah, the money doesn't move until the campaign is fully funded. By putting in a pledge, you are obligated to pay that money if the campaign reaches its goal, but if it doesn't, no money was ever taken from you, so it doesn't need to be given back.
Right. So like, if say for example you're up on the internet and you've been drinking hard, and then you see a campaign and maybe you pledge a couple $1,000, you can always kind of welch on it.
Well, you can modify your pledge during the course of the campaign, but once the campaign is over, if you've pledged that money, you've pledged that money, it's gone.
Yeah. Uh, cool. Let me see if I can find just a few more here. Um, let's see. Nikki has a question. I understand crowdfunded books are often not eligible for self-published book literary awards. Is this something you've heard of, Ariana?
It's not something I've heard of, and actually, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure any award can have their own, specifications for what's allowed, but we see crowdfunded books winning awards a lot. We certainly there are crowdfunded, kickstarted comic books that have won Eisners. We've seen definitely, yeah, I don't have anything to hand, but certainly it is not true that all awards exclude crowdfunded books. I
Yeah.
suppose it depends on the award.
I suppose that there is one publisher over here, Unbound, and I think a few in the US, who will sort of have like a hybrid model where they will sort of, like take submissions and then host sort of a semi crowd-funded page where people can then pledge to the particular book. But it's sort of traditionally published because they make all the editorial decisions. But there's crowdfunding in that sense. Those might not be technically counted as self-publishing, so perhaps that's what you might be thinking of there. George asks, is Kickstarter only available to individuals, or can companies use it to fundraise for book publishing as well? I suppose like you
Yeah,
have people like kickstarting entire companies, right?
yes, for sure. I mean, Peloton got its start on Kickstarter. Allbirds got their start on Kickstarter. But on the book side, I work with a lot of publishers, small publishers like Microcosm and PM Press. They both run about a campaign every single month. I've worked with larger publishers. There's like a beautiful project. Rough Trade Books in the UK did a Kickstarter for a book on a sort of fan compendium about the movie The Shining. It's almost a misnomer to call it a book. It's actually a box of unbound typewritten pages, and the box itself is patterned after the wallpaper of the hotel in the movie. You get like key fobs. There's all these interviews. It was a very ambitious project. The argument for a publisher is very similar to the argument for an author. You can imagine a small press like Rough Trade, which doesn't have great margins. If they wanted to make a really ambitious, really expensive project like that would blow up a traditional P&L. But if you can assess your audience size up front, set appropriate print runs, raise that money first, then you know that you're not going to bankrupt the whole company by doing a big ambitious project like that.
Cool. I've just put up the link to the publishing side. What do you call your knowledge hub?
Library.
Yeah. So if you want more information, so lots of folks I think may not be super familiar with Kickstarter. So just go to the website, and I'm pretty sure on their homepage they'll guide you through, what the entire process looks like. Uh, JM asks, "What was your most successful book project?" I guess that would be Brandon Sanderson's. Before
Yeah.
that seemed to have blown the roof off the entire thing. Before that, what was your previous gold star #1 slide?
The previous biggest project was also Brandon Sanderson, but he only raised, I think, $7 million on his first campaign. I'm gonna pull it up. I think we have there's a company, I think they're in Texas, that makes photo books of antique guns. They
Okay.
are, I think, our other highest funded. So most funded. I'm just looking right now. Brandon. Oh, there's a book called The Book, which is made by a team in Russia. It's this like very big, highly designed sort of coffee table book about rebuilding civilization after the apocalypse. It's got sort of like steampunk vibes and all these like futuristic inventions. It's quite cool. And yeah, Pistols of the Warlords is #4. The SCP Foundation art books, that's #5. And then another very recent project, Seasons of the Shadowhunters, is #6. That's Cassandra Clare. She's another best-selling. She's a YA fantasy novelist, and she did a similar Year of Cassie campaign. She collected a lot of, put in print for the first time, a number of stories that had only appeared on Tumblr. She also had she had one of my favorite rewards ever for, I think for $300. She would write the word or phrase of your choice so that you could get it tattooed on your body. So yeah, these are, Will White's also in our top, Sherilyn Kenyon, Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. Those are some of the highest funded Kickstarter publishing projects.
Okay. So yeah, like Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. Like I've seen that in museum. I saw it in the Tate Museum gift shop over here. So
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
something that has since seen like a traditional launch, or are they still handling a lot? Like, what was the process for that book?
Well, so that book happened before my time, before I got here. They have run a number of campaigns. I think they've run 6. Uh, but yeah, I believe they launched their whole company on Kickstarter. I think Goodnight Stories was their first ever book. I think it was a runaway success even for them. And that, created a whole series of books and the whole company. And yeah.
Uh, Ben Bennett asks, "Do campaigners have access to real-time data about the pledges?" He's anticipating budgeting is a little trickier if you're offering different tiers at very varied price points.
Yes, you have real-time access to all that data. You see everybody who pledges and how much they pledge for, what reward tier. You can also see when people adjust or cancel or increase. Yeah, there is definitely going to be some amount of guesswork. You won't know until it's over exactly how many books to print or stickers to make or things like that. But most print production houses that you would probably find are likely familiar with crowdfunding at this point, and so they will work with you to understand your costs in ranges, not necessarily only in specifics.
So, if I go onto someone else's campaign page, will I be able to see the sort of timeline of this person donated this amount, this person backed it by this amount?
No, you can see the number of people who have backed at any reward tier. That's true for live and also past projects, but you don't get people's personal
Yeah,
information.
but I suppose if you're interested to see how similar projects have done, you can go check
Yeah,
out their page and see like, oh yeah, this number of people have backed to this amount with this kind of reward. So it feels like
and
yeah,
You should fully do that. I am an expert in Kickstarter because I stare at Kickstarter all day, every day. You too can stare at Kickstarter. That's why I suggested backing some projects. Every project that has ever run on the site is still there. So you can conduct all sorts of research and learn so much about what has worked and hasn't for other people doing similar things.
Great. Let me see if I can pull one more. Otherwise, might be time to draw this to a close. Oriana, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been really useful. Folks, if you're still sort of in the dark with any aspect of this, I imagine if you go to Kickstarter.com, there'll be plenty of resources to sort of fill any knowledge gaps you might have. Are there any sort of last sentiments or thoughts or pearls of wisdom you might want to share with the folks before we close out today?
You all asked such good questions. I feel like these are all the things that I tend to cover in these sorts of talks. Yeah, I hope that many more people try it. Kickstarter is a pretty incredible way to build your community, enhance your brand, and raise much needed funds for your literary work. So great to see more authors on here all the time.
Great. Well, thank you, Oriana. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you enjoyed what you saw today and would like to see more, follow us here on YouTube or head to blog.reedsy.com/live and see what other events we have coming up in the coming weeks. I think we have some live critiques. Our First Line Frenzy with Rebecca Heyman is back, and we'll have another live editing session with Tom Bromley. So plenty of stuff for everyone to get involved in. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Oriana. Catch you all soon.
Thank you
Bye.
so much for having me.